Day is a poignant Sunday all across this country as people go to church and people mourn the loss of the crew of the Space Shuttle Columbia. And in some hometowns, 7 of them to be exact, it is even more a sad day. CNN's Brian Cabell is in the hometown of Laurel Clark, mission specialist on Columbia, on her first flight. Brian joins us now with reaction from there. Brian?
Miles, Laurel Clark once laughingly described herself as a boring straight-A student, although we're told at one point she did actually get a B in high school in typing, and she was anything but boring. She was a swimmer, she was a diver, she was a surgeon, she was an astronaut, she was a skier, she was a wife, and she was a mother. Back in 1996, when she first became an astronaut, her son Ian was only about 1 or 2 years old, but at that point she didn't see any conflict between her being an astronaut and a mother.
She always felt that it was the right thing to do and that Ian would understand. And that's what we have to be there for now, for Ian, to help him understand it and to get through this. An 8-year-old who loved his mother very, very much is now going to have to eventually understand that just how great she was.
Ian, her son, incidentally, was writing an article for Scholastic magazine. It was entitled, "My Mommy is an Astronaut." Give you a further indication of how she combined her two roles. One of the things she brought up into the shuttle with her was a project from her son's class that included photographs of all his classmates and handprints from them as well. She also brought another item into space with her, and that was kind of a block letter, a pennant from her high school that she graduated from in Racine here back in 1979. She was a hometown girl. She went to a Unitarian church here in Racine. In fact, there was a service here today. Her brother, who lives nearby, attended along with his wife, and greeting him on the sidewalk was bagpipers. Inside, a lot of people talked about who she was, what she meant to them. They shared their memories of Laurel Clark, who was here up until about 4 or 5 years ago. In fact, the minister here married them. That's the minister hugging her brother and sister-in-law earlier today. The Reverend was one who got up and spoke of her and said one thing that amazed him about her was that she was extremely talented. She came across as extremely talented and extremely intelligent, but what you noticed about her was that she was a nice person, unpretentious about all her accomplishments. There'll be a memorial service for her here at the church tomorrow night, and then on Wednesday night, the whole town will turn out for a memorial service downtown. Miles?
CNN's Brian Cabell, Racine, Wisconsin. Thank you very much. Terribly, terribly sad story. We are waiting any moment now to hear from the governor of Texas, who's going to fill in some blanks for us on the search for wreckage all across the Lone Star State. That should be happening any minute now. It's slated to begin 4 p.m. Eastern, now 5 after. We will bring that to you as soon as it happens. For now, though, let's check in with Anderson Cooper at CNN Center in Atlanta for an update on the latest developments on the investigation into the loss of the Shuttle Columbia. Anderson.
Thanks very much, Miles. I am Anderson Cooper in Atlanta. Dozens of sites in eastern Texas and western Louisiana crews face the grim task of recovering debris from the destroyed Shuttle Columbia. Pieces range from postage stamp size to the size of a compact car. Hard to believe. Searchers have also found human remains. NASA has named retired Navy Admiral Harold Gaiman to head the investigation. NASA Chief Sean O'Keefe says the Gaiman Commission will look at every possible angle.
Having an independent objective board led by someone of the stature and standing of a 4-star retired Admiral Hal Gaiman, to conduct this with members who are external NASA experts looking at safety, mission assurance, and flight certification is our goal.
Of course, in Houston, home base of the astronaut corps, and literally around the world, people mourn the loss of the 7 astronauts, praised by President Bush for their courage and idealism. In about an hour, NASA will hold a news conference to update today's developments. We, of course, will bring that to you live. Now, we continue with CNN special coverage, Columbia, the shuttle tragedy. Here's Miles O'Brien.
Thank you very much, Anderson Cooper at CNN Center in Atlanta. Let's continue our coverage of the search for wreckage and some of the unfortunate tales of people who, against the cautions otherwise, have been picking those pieces up, finding themselves in the hospital with burns because there's some toxic chemicals that are associated with rocketry and rocket science and flying space shuttles, and we encourage you not to do that. Let's check in with Whitney Casey, who joins us now from Louisiana, where the search for that wreckage continues. Whitney.
Well, Miles, I heard you yesterday talking about those small tiles, and Anderson just talked about actually people looking for things that are about the size of a Post-it. And can you imagine finding something in dense bush like this, the size of a Post-it? Well, that's what NASA, FEMA, local sheriff's departments, Department of Forestry, that's what they're up against. I'm just going to take you a little bit around some of the areas that they searched yesterday and looking for debris. This is the dense forest of Louisiana. We are about 3 hours south of Shreveport, Louisiana, in Leesville. It's a small town, but it's got a lot of this forest that's sort of juxtaposed amidst houses where they did find debris. They found a cylinder about this big in front of someone's house, and they also say that in the reservoir and in the lake here that they have found debris. Now, talking about that reservoir, it is a massive body of water that separates Louisiana from Texas. In addition to that, there is also a 250 to 300 acre huge national park that looks like this kind of dense bush. Now, something that reminded me something of this is sort of a collaborative effort that took place around the crash of Flight 587. I covered that in New York. It was not so much like this. They didn't have this harrowing task, but they did have to look for parts of that American Airlines Flight 587 in Bell Harbor, which was dispersed amidst quite a few houses there. And what they did was they asked the community members to get out and start looking around. And in that case, they asked them to call, just like they're doing here, not to pick anything up, not to disturb anything, and to call the hotline because of the toxins. And that's what we have here for you right now. Apparently, I think we're losing some of our sound, Miles, so I'm going to toss it back to you, and maybe we'll come back later.
Whitney Casey, Leesburg, Louisiana. Thanks very much. We're still awaiting that news conference. Actually, we're waiting a couple of news conferences now. It's now about 10 minutes past the hour, 4 p.m. in the East Coast, and we're expecting to hear from the governor of Texas, Rick Perry, very shortly. We'll bring that to you live. Also, the main event as it relates to press conferences today, we expect to hear from representatives of NASA, the team doing the investigation at 4:30 Eastern Time. That is when we will, of course, bring you live and bring it to you uppermost. So stay with us for that. We'll be back with more in just a moment.